You ever get an email that makes your entire world stop spinning? I did. It was sent at 2:14 p.m. from my own mother. The subject line just said, "Enjoy being broke." Inside were photos of my mom and sister sipping Mai Tais on a luxury beach in Hawaii, alongside bank statements showing every single cent of my $500,000 life savings completely wiped out. They thought they had pulled off the ultimate getaway. They thought I would just sit at home, cry, and beg them to come back. They were wrong, because I didn't call a family therapist. I called the FBI. For 10 straight years, I had sacrificed everything to build that safety net. While my friends were buying luxury cars and traveling the world, I worked 70-hour weeks in cybersecurity, living in a cramped apartment and eating instant noodles. I was playing the long game. And because I traveled constantly for high-stakes server security implementations, I trusted my mother and sister with joint access administrative permissions to help manage emergency household bills while I was out of the country. I never imagined they viewed my hard-earned sacrifices as their personal retirement fund, waiting for the right moment to strike. Growing up, the dynamic in our house was always clear. I was the backup plan and my sister, Chloe, was the golden child. Mom made sure everyone knew it, while Chloe bounced from one failed boutique business to another, relying on Mom to bail her out. I was the reliable one. I put myself through college studying systems architecture, took night shifts, and saved every single dollar. Whenever I bought something for myself, even a used sedan, my mom would sigh and lecture me about not sharing enough with my family. "That's not how a good son behaves," she'd say, as if my bank account belonged to the collective household. For years, I brushed it off because they were my blood. When Mom suggested she help manage my secondary investment portfolio to minimize tax liability, using her experienced family accountant, I trusted her. Big mistake. I didn't see the psychological trap closing in. They viewed my frugal lifestyle not as discipline, but as an open invitation to fund their luxury tastes. Every dinner I skipped, every vacation I postponed, and every sweat-filled hour in the server room was just building a bigger piggy bank for them to smash open the second I turned my back. Most people would have broken down right there. They would have stared at the screen, dialed their mother's number with shaking fingers, and screamed, wept, or begged for answers. But working in cybersecurity for a decade teaches you one vital lesson. When a system gets breached, panic is your worst enemy. You don't scream at the firewall. You analyze the logs. I didn't call them. I didn't text. I sat completely still at my desk while my heart hammered a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I opened a fresh terminal window on my workstation, pulled up my password manager, and began systematically checking every financial dashboard I owned. The savings accounts were completely drained. $500,000. Wiped out in a single morning via wire transfers authorized through the shared administrative credentials I had foolishly trusted them with. Then I looked at the metadata of the email they sent. It wasn't just a casual taunt. It was a digital confession stamped with a Hawaiian IP address and time-stamped down to the exact second. They thought they had left me powerless, stripped of every cent I owned. They didn't realize that wire fraud crossing state and international lines isn't just a family dispute. It's a federal felony. I closed my laptop, grabbed my jacket, bypassed local precinct desks entirely, and walked straight through the heavy glass doors of the downtown FBI field office. Step inside the federal building, and the air changes immediately. It smells like copier toner, institutional coffee, and quiet, unyielding authority. I sat across a sterile metal desk from Special Agent Vance, a man with salt and pepper hair and eyes that looked like they had seen every variety of human stupidity. I didn't cry. I slid my encrypted flash drive across the table, along with printed copies of the email, the bank transfer routing numbers, and the digital paper trail linking the multi-state fund transfers directly to my mother and sister. Agent Vance scrolled through the documents, his eyebrows rising slowly. He didn't see a domestic dispute. He saw an open and shut case of interstate wire fraud and identity-adjacent asset theft. He looked up, tapping a pen against the desk. "Mr. Miller," he said, his voice completely level, "your family made a critical error. They used domestic electronic wires to move these funds across state lines, and worse, They left a digital paper trail straight to a resort IP address. Working alongside the Federal Cyber Division, we set up a controlled surveillance operation. The agents instructed me to act completely normal, no blocks, no frantic text messages, no warning signs. They wanted my mother and sister to feel secure in their stolen luxury, spending the money under the assumption that I was still sitting at home paralyzed by shock. Meanwhile, federal financial monitors placed immediate freeze flags on every single account tied to their destination, preparing to lock down the assets the second they tried to make their next major withdrawal. The trap was set, and the countdown had officially begun. Day 4 of their tropical paradise. I was sitting at my kitchen table, nursing a cup of black coffee, when my cell phone finally vibrated against the wood. It was an incoming call from my mother. I hit speakerphone and let it ring twice before picking up, keeping my breathing even and my voice completely flat. The second I answered, the background noise hit me, not the sound of relaxing waves, but the chaotic, echoing clamor of a high-end designer boutique lobby, mixed with near-hysterical panic. My mother wasn't just upset. She was screaming at the top of her lungs, demanding an explanation. Her credit cards had just been declined at the register while trying to check out with $5,000 worth of luxury bags. When she tried to log into her primary banking app to transfer emergency funds, she found herself completely locked out of every single account. The hotel manager had already cornered them at the front desk, threatening immediate eviction for non-payment of their suite. She shrieked into the receiver, her voice cracking with absolute disbelief. Whose accounts were those? Why are we locked out? Fix this right now. That was the delicious, devastating twist. In their greedy, blind rush to drain my accounts clean, they hadn't realized that the primary holding accounts were tied to high-level corporate security trusts and restricted investment structures that automatically flagged massive, unauthorized interstate liquidations. They hadn't just stolen my savings. They had accidentally triggered an automated federal security lock that brought down an iron wall on every cent they possessed, turning their dream vacation into a terrifying cage. 48 hours later, my mother and sister stepped off the red-eye flight into the arrivals terminal, expecting a shivering, submissive son waiting to grovel and bail them out of their Hawaiian nightmare. Instead, they walked straight into a cold reality check. As they marched toward the exit, dragging their designer luggage and looking frantic, 2 federal marshals stepped smoothly into their path, flanked by myself standing quietly a few feet away with my hands in my pockets. My mother's face flushed a furious, ugly crimson as she caught sight of me, instantly shifting from panic to venomous entitlement. She abandoned her bags, rushed right up to me, and raised a shaking finger, her voice echoing off the terminal tiles. You absolute psycho. You actually called the police on your own flesh and blood over a little family loan? Do you have any idea what kind of humiliation we just went through at that resort? Fix this with the authorities right this second. Or so help me God, you are dead to us. She expected me to shrink back, to apologize, to fold under her familiar emotional tyranny, just like I had done every day of my life growing up. Instead, I looked at her with complete, chilling indifference. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. I just stared straight into her eyes and delivered the words that finally shattered her illusion of control. You didn't take a loan, Mom. You committed interstate wire fraud and grand larceny. The luxury vacation is over, and the only people fixing this are federal judges. As the marshals stepped forward to read them their rights and click the steel cuffs around their wrists, my sister started sobbing hysterically, while my mother stared at me in sheer, unadulterated horror, finally realizing that her golden boy wasn't a safety net anymore. He was the trap. The legal fallout was swift and absolute. Within weeks, formal charges of interstate wire fraud and grand larceny were filed, carrying zero chance of bail given the federal scope of the asset theft. The courts moved quickly to freeze what remained of their illicit funds and execute a full asset recovery, returning every single dollar back into my secured accounts. My mother and sister faced real prison time, their defense crumbling under the weight of the digital paper trails and the email admissions they had so arrogantly sent me. When the rest of our extended family learned what really happened, that they had tried to steal $500,000 from the son who supported them, They were completely ostracized, left with no one willing to answer their phone calls. As for me, I finally walked away from the shadow of family manipulation for good. I used a portion of my recovered savings to buy a peaceful, modern home away from the toxicity, complete with a dedicated workspace and a quiet view. Sitting out on the back porch with my morning coffee, watching the sun rise without the constant weight of guilt or obligation, I realized something profound. Cutting off toxic family isn't a tragic loss. It's the ultimate self-rescue. Sometimes, the only way to build a real future is to let go of the people trying to tear it down.